Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki married different women? Naruto x Sarah x Hinata x Sakura x Ino x Tenten x Tamari x Konan x Yugito x Samui x Mabui x Mei x Tsunade x Anko x Karen, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Team 7 are leaving the ruins of Roran when they see a caravan of travelers. One of the travelers, a beautiful girl around their age with light red hair, is approaching them. Who are you? Naruto asks, unable to keep his eyes from the beauty before him. My name is Sarah. I felt a disturbance in the Ryamyaku so I came to investigate. Sarah says. Team 7 then notice Sarah is holding a chakra blade which looks like the one Naruto had. Naruto checks where his was and finds it missing. Where did you get that? Yamato asks. My mother gave it to me. She had a dream that a hero appeared before her and gave it to her. When she awoke she found the blade in her hands. During the war my mother was able to save our people with it. When she passed away she gave me this blade so that I could continue to protect our people. Sarah says. Team 7 are stunned by the story they just heard. Sarah then begins to walk away back to her caravan. Weird, I think I've seen her before. Naruto says. Sakura turns a glare on her blonde teammate and prepares to lay into him, but then Naruto begins moving toward Sarah as though in a trance. Naruto can't explain it to himself, but he wants to get to know this girl. He's never even seen her before today and yet she has invaded his mind. Excuse me, but I was wondering if we could be pen pals. Naruto asks. Goddammit, that was lame. Naruto thinks. Sarah turns around and raises her eyebrow at Naruto as if asking why. Well, I don't really know much about the world. And I figured since you're travelers you could write to me and tell me what it's like. Naruto says. Sarah smiles a reassuring smile. Sure thing, let me get a map and a timetable of where and when we should get to places. Sarah says. Okay. Naruto says. Sarah enters her caravan and comes out moments later, handing Naruto a map of her caravan's travel routes and when they should arrive at each location. Thank you. Naruto says. No problem, I look forward to hearing from you. Sarah says. The caravans then begin moving and Sarah and Naruto wave goodbye to each other. While this was going on, Sakura looked on shell-shocked by what she witnessed. Scene break. For many months Sarah and Naruto kept in contact with each other. Naruto would ask about the places she's been to. Sarah would tell him and ask him what he's been up to. When the Fourth Great Ninja War had been declared over, Sarah decided to go and see Naruto, who had fought in the war. Upon entering his hospital room, which is also occupied by Sasuke Uchiha, Sarah is shocked by the injuries he has received. Sarah, you're here? Naruto asks. Of course I am. I had to make sure my pen pal is okay. Sarah says. Sasuke raises an eyebrow at the pair's interaction. Oh, where are my manners? Sasuke, this is Sarah. Sarah, this is Sasuke Uchiha, my best friend. Naruto says. Sarah bows her head in greeting and Sasuke does the same. So how did you two meet? Sasuke asks. Naruto and Sarah then tell Sasuke how they met, which confuses and intrigues him. So how long are you staying in Konoha? Naruto asks. Maybe a week. Sarah says. Oh. Naruto says, sounding sad. Sasuke picks this up and becomes amused by what he is seeing, deciding to help his brother out. Sasuke comes up with a play. Hey Naruto, why don't you show Sarah around? Sasuke says. Naruto and Sarah look at Sasuke in confusion, so he elaborates. I'll make a shadow clone and have it transform into you. That way you can show Sarah around. Sasuke says. That's a great idea, Sasuke. Naruto says. But aren't you supposed to be recovering? Sarah asks. I'm fine, Sarah, I heal pretty quickly. They're just keeping me in to be mean. Naruto says. Well, okay then. Sarah says. Naruto grins. He then leaps out of bed, grabs Sarah's hand and runs out of the hospital with her. Sasuke then makes a shadow clone and has it transform into Naruto. The clone then gets into Naruto's bed. Scene break. The first place Naruto takes Sarah to is Ichiraku Ramen. This place has the best food in the whole elemental nations. Naruto says. A ramen stand? Sarah questions. Not just any ramen, Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto says. What's the difference? Sarah asks. You'll see. Naruto says. The two enter the stand and are greeted by Tyuki and Ayame. Welcome. Ayame says. Hello Naruto, shouldn't you be in the hospital? Tyuki asks. I'm fine, there was no need for me to stay. Naruto says. Tyuki and Ayame shake their heads in amusement, before noticing Naruto's friend. So Naruto, who's your friend? Ayame asks. This is Sarah. I met her a few months ago and we've been pen pals ever since. She came to visit me to see if I was okay. Naruto says. Both Tyuki and Ayame are surprised by this, before getting over their shock. So what will you two be having? Tyuki asks. Naruto orders the usual while Sarah has a miso ramen. Upon tasting the miso ramen, Sarah's mouth explodes with flavors. Never in her life has she tasted anything so good in her life. She begins devouring the ramen with the same enthusiasm as Naruto. Soon Naruto has eaten 19 bowls of ramen and Sarah has eaten 5, both are completely stuffed. After paying for their meal, Naruto then takes Sarah to other places around Konoha, including the Yamanaka flower shop, the academy, the Hokage Tower and the Hokage Mountain. Scene break. The sun is setting over the village of Konoha and Naruto has taken Sarah to his favorite spot in the village, the top of his father's head on the Hokage Mountain. Wow, the view from here is so beautiful. Sarah says. Yeah, it is. This place is my favorite place in the village. Whenever I needed time to think, I would come up here to reflect. Naruto says. Why here? Sarah asks. When I was growing up, I heard how great the fourth Hokage was, so I made him my idol and swore to surpass him. So whenever things got tough in my life, I would come up here and think, what would the fourth do in my position? Recently I found out he's my father. Naruto says. Sarah becomes floored by this, not expecting Naruto to be the son of Minato Namikaze. Then again, looking closely at Naruto and seeing the resemblance between him and the yellow flash, it makes her wonder how it isn't a bigger known fact. Suddenly Naruto pales as an ominous presence makes itself known. Turning around, Naruto comes face to face with a very angry Tsunade and Sakura. Hey there, Granny Tsunade and Sakura. Naruto says nervously. Hello Naruto. Why aren't you in the hospital? Tsunade asks. Well, my pen pal Sarah came to visit and she's only here for a week, and she really wanted to see Konoha, so I thought I'd take a day out of my recovery to show her around. Naruto says. Tsunade and Sakura look at Sarah. Tsunade had heard about Sarah from Sakura and Yamato but is surprised she is here. Sakura meanwhile is also shocked that Sarah came to Konoha. Why is she here? Sakura asks. I heard Naruto had got injured fighting in the war, so I came to see him. Sarah says. Tsunade decides to get things back on track. Look Naruto, it's really sweet you decided to show your friend around Konoha, but you're still recovering, so you will get your back to hospital right now. Tsunade says. But Granny, I feel fine. Naruto says. Naruto, Lady Tsunade knows what's best, and what's best for you is to rest until you're fully healed. Sakura says. Naruto looks ready to object but Sarah cuts him off. Naruto, they're right. You've already shown me around Konoha, so now just rest up in the hospital. I'll visit you every day as long as I'm in Konoha. Sarah says. Naruto, hearing this, relents to the shock of Tsunade and Sakura. As Naruto is escorted back to the hospital, Tsunade can't help but wish that Sarah would remain in Konoha, as this is the most compliant she's ever seen Naruto. Scene break. 6 days have passed since Sarah arrived in Konoha. She visited Naruto every day like she promised. During her visits, her and Naruto got closer to one another, and soon Sarah was dreading the day when she and her people would leave. Likewise, Naruto was also dreading her leaving, as he has outgrown his crush on Sakura, and has started to get feelings for Sarah. The night before she is scheduled to leave, one of her closest friends and top advisor, Hideki Fujioka, decides to have a word with Sarah. For months he had seen Sarah receive letters from Naruto, and had seen her face light up with each one. Then they got to Konoha and he'd never seen her so happy, her face beaming with each visit to Naruto, only to become depressed when she realized they'll be leaving soon. Lady Sarah, for years our people have been wanderers, traveling from place to place but never staying in one place for long. Lately I've noticed a change in you. You've always been free-spirited and loved exploring. The fact that we never used to stay in one place was a joy to you. However, I've noticed that this time there is no joy but sadness, and I think I know why. It's because of that boy Naruto. You've become attached to him in a way that you haven't with anyone else you've met on our travels, making you want to stay. Am I right? Hideki says. Sarah is shocked that Hideki read her so well, but then the man had raised her after her parents' death, acting as a father, uncle and grandfather all rolled into one. You're right, Hideki. Sarah says. So why don't we stay here in Konoha? Hideki asks. Sarah is shocked by such a suggestion. Hideki, I can't do that. Our people are nomads, wanderers. We lost our home with Rorin. It wouldn't be fair to burden another nation with our refugees. Sarah says. Lady Sarah, our people are tired of wandering the nations. I've been meaning to bring it up with you for a while but couldn't find it in myself. However, I believe the perfect excuse has arrived for me to broach the subject. Hideki says. Sarah is shocked by what Hideki says. She hasn't noticed her people's longing for a permanent home, as she was too focused on traveling and seeing the world. How selfish of her. But Konoha is a ninja village. You know how hard it is to even enter one, let alone be allowed to move into one. Sarah says. True, but even if all of us are unable to stay in Konoha, you should be able to. Hideki says. Sarah is shocked by what Hideki says once again, this time though she is a little angry. Not on her watch would her people be separated like that. Our people aren't being separated like that. I'll go see the Hokage tomorrow and work out a deal that'll allow us all to stay in Konoha. Sarah says. Hideki is shocked by the determination Sarah is showing, before smirking as she is reminding him of her mother. Scene break. It was surprisingly easy to convince Lady Tsunade to allow her people to remain in Konoha. The paperwork was also surprisingly processed quickly. Unknown to Sarah, Tsunade had been anticipating Sarah wanting to remain in Konoha with her people, and had been getting the ball rolling in preparation for Sarah asking for refuge in Konoha for her and her people. Sarah was so happy that she and her people finally had a permanent home. She was also happy that she could stay with Naruto, that when she saw him and told him the news, it was with the biggest grin on her face ever. Naruto was also happy that Sarah was staying in Konoha, that when he was told the news, he leapt out of bed and hugged Sarah tightly, making her blush. Naruto also blushed when he realized what he was doing. Sasuke just found the situation hilarious. For the next couple of years, Naruto and Sarah grew closer to one another, much to the ire of Naruto's fan club. The two eventually became an official couple after 2 years. Sasuke and Sakura would also get together. Ino got with Sai, Tenten got with Lee, Hinata moved on from Naruto and got with Shino, Kiba found love with Tamaki, Shikamaru and Tamari finally stopped living in denial and got together, but the biggest shock was Choji and Karui getting together. A few years later, Naruto and Sarah were wed. A few months later, she gave birth to a son named Takeshi Uzumaki. Naruto couldn't believe how his life had turned out. As a child he was scorned and hated by the village, now he was its beloved hero. He was also married to a beautiful woman and had a son. He was also due to start his Hokage training soon, so all in all, his life turned out great. Isaribi couldn't help but smile in pure happiness. It had taken close to 3 years, but she was finally cured from all of the things Amachi did to her. What was more, Tsunade had granted her asylum in Konoha, making her a citizen of Konoha and allowing her a fresh start. As Isaribi is wandering through the village, she hears a voice she hasn't heard for close to 3 years. Upon hearing that voice, her breath hitches and her heart starts beating faster. She rushes over to where the voice is and is greeted to the sight of Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, the one who had saved her 3 years ago, who brought her to Konoha so Tsunade could cure her, who was responsible for her fresh start, who had left shortly after bringing her to Konoha so he could get stronger. He had finally returned literally the same day she was cured. He had changed since he left. He was now taller by a great deal and had lost all his baby fat. His outfit was different as well. The orange was still there but more subdued, and the blue trim was replaced with black. Naruto is standing on a telephone pole looking over the village of Konoha. As he looks down, he spots someone he hasn't seen in close to 3 years, but she has changed greatly. For one, she was no longer wearing bandages, indicating she no longer has scales. She's also grown several inches, and has become a lot curvier. Naruto grins upon seeing her and jumps down to her. "Hey Isaribi," Naruto says, greeting her. "Hey Naruto." Isaribi greets in kind. "When did you get cured?" Naruto asks. "Today," Isaribi says. "Whoa, really? What a coincidence, you getting cured the day I return." Naruto says. "Yeah, it is a strange coincidence, but I'm not complaining." Isaribi says. "Naruto?" The voice of Sakura asks. Naruto and Isaribi turn to see Sakura Haruno staring at them in surprise, well, more like staring at Naruto. Isaribi notices the look and frowns at Sakura. "It is you. When did you get back?" Sakura asks. "Just now," Naruto responds. Naruto looks over Sakura and notices the changes in her appearance. She was taller, but he was now taller than her. She was also curvier and her hair was now more evened out but still kept at shoulder length. Her outfit was also different, showing of more skin. Sakura notices Naruto looking her over and blushes a bit. "So Naruto, do I look more womanly now?" Sakura asks in a seductive manner. Isaribi mentally seethes at Sakura's actions. Naruto grins at Sakura. "You look the same as always, Sakura," Naruto says, making a nice guy pose. Sakura deadpans at Naruto. Jiraiya, who has been observing the trio, mentally facepalms at his student's denseness. Isaribi is slightly miffed on Sakura's behalf since, as a woman, she knows that when a woman wants a compliment but doesn't get one, it can sting, but that part of her is eclipsed by satisfaction that Naruto didn't take the bait. Sakura fumes angrily at Naruto before punching him in the jaw, sending him flying. "What did I do?" Naruto asks, hurt. "Smooth kid, very smooth," Jiraiya says. Isaribi goes over and helps Naruto up. Sakura notices this and mentally frowns at Isaribi. Jiraiya notices this and decides to intervene. "Okay, that's enough of the comedy sketch. Naruto, we have to go and report to Tsunade," Jiraiya says. "Okay, pervy sage," Naruto says, making Jiraiya grumble. "I have to go and see her as well," Sakura says. Isaribi is sad that she can't spend more time with Naruto. "Hey Isaribi, after I see Granny Tsunade, do you wanna get something to eat and catch up?" Naruto asks. Isaribi immediately brightens up while Sakura becomes shell-shocked. "Yes," Isaribi says. "Okay, see you later," Naruto says, leaving for the Hokage Tower. Scene break. The following months, Naruto and Isaribi spent a lot of time together, much to the chagrin of Sakura and Hinata, though their duties often meant they couldn't interfere much. Naruto was given many missions after his return, with two sticking out in particular. The first was when his close friend and newly made Kazekage Gaara was kidnapped by the Akatsuki. Naruto, Sakura and Kakashi were sent to rescue him with Team Guy backing them up. The mission had been successful. The next was when Naruto, Sakura, their new teammate Sai and new team leader Yamato were sent to capture a spy that was working for Sasori who was in Orochimaru's ranks. The mission was a failure and Naruto had actually lost control of himself to the Kyuubi. Fortunately no one was seriously hurt. After that Naruto began training to master his elemental affinity, which was wind. During that time 2 members of the Akatsuki attacked the fire temple, killing many of the monks. The 20 legions were sent out to catch them, but they failed, with Asuma Sarutobi getting killed in the process. When Naruto heard the news he was devastated and blamed himself. Isaribi is currently making her way to Naruto's apartment. She was on a mission. Ever since Asuma's funeral Naruto hasn't been seen by anyone and it scared her slightly. Getting to his door Isaribi begins knocking, but after receiving no answer she decides to kick the door down. Isaribi looks around the apartment and spots Naruto lying in his bed. Naruto? Isaribi asks. Naruto doesn't answer, so Isaribi goes over to him. Naruto senses her approach and decides to sit up. Isaribi freezes upon looking at Naruto. Naruto, who is normally all smiles and sunshine, is now miserably and gloomy. His eyes that are normally full of life are now dead and bloodshot. His face is also stained with dried tears. Hey Isaribi, what are you doing here? Naruto asks in a hollow dead voice. Isaribi's heart breaks upon seeing him in such a condition. I'm here because I'm worried about you. No one has seen you since the funeral and people, it made me worry. Isaribi says. Naruto remains silent, his face blank. So what's got you in this state? I wasn't aware you and Asuma were that close. Isaribi says. It's my fault he died. Naruto says. No it's not. Isaribi says, having an idea now why he's in this state. Yes it is. Those Akatsuki were looking for me and Asuma sensei was killed by them. Naruto says. Naruto, no one is blaming you for Asuma's death. The only one who is you. Isaribi says. Naruto ignores her, however content to ramble. I overheard a couple of people talking about Kurenai-sensei being pregnant with Asuma-sensei's child. Now that child will grow up without a father because of me. How can I ever face Kurenai-sensei or their child knowing I'm responsible for them losing a lover and a father? Naruto says. Isaribi listens as Naruto rambles, unsure of what to do, when suddenly a new voice makes itself known. It's not your fault, Naruto. The voice of Kurenai says. Naruto and Isaribi look over in shock at hearing Kurenai's voice. Naruto's eyes widen in fear at seeing her. Kurenai sees this and frowns. I don't blame you for what happened, so please don't burden yourself with guilt when you have enough burdens on your shoulders already. Kurenai says. Naruto looks shocked at Kurenai and there is also a hint of relief in his eyes as well. Really? You mean it? Naruto asks. Yes I do, Naruto. Kurenai says. Kurenai then embraces Naruto in a hug that has so many feelings in it. Naruto is stunned at first before returning the hug and letting loose all his emotions on Kurenai's shoulder. Isaribi looks on in happiness that Naruto isn't blaming himself anymore, but is also slightly sad that it wasn't her that helped him. But maybe it's better this way, as Naruto needed to hear it from someone like Kurenai so he could truly see he wasn't being blamed. Scene break. After that Naruto threw himself into his training, determined to master his element and create his newest jutsu. When the 2 Akatsuki who killed Asuma returned, Team 10 with Kakashi went out to meet them. Team 7 followed shortly after to back them up. Naruto was able to kill the one called Kakazu with his newly created wind release, Rasenshuriken, while Shikamaru incapacitated Hidan by burying him alive. After that Konoha entered a period of peace for a while. News however came that Sasuke had betrayed and killed Orochimaru and was forming a team to track and kill Itachi. So Tsunade decided to send out Teams 7 and 8, in the hopes of finding Sasuke and returning him to Konoha. The mission however failed. Sasuke was able to find and kill Itachi and then vanished along with his team, leading to a very dejected Naruto returning to Konoha. However, for Naruto the worst was yet to come. While he was away, Jiraiya had discovered the location for the Akatsuki's leader and went to confront him alone. Jiraiya did not survive the encounter. When Naruto heard the news, he was devastated, more so than when Asuma died, so much so he verbally lashed out at Tsunade. Isaribi upon hearing of this immediately went to find Naruto but couldn't find him anywhere, not at his apartment, not at Ichiraku's, not even at the Hokage mountain. Eventually though Isaribi found him at night, he was in a clearing gazing up at the stars. "What are doing here, Isaribi?" Naruto asks, having sensed her approaching. "I came because I was worried about you," Isaribi says. Naruto doesn't respond and Isaribi decides to sit next to him. "I'm sorry about Lord Jiraiya," Isaribi says. "I wanted him to see me become Hokage, so that I could make him proud that all the effort he put into training me was worth it." Naruto says, "Oh Naruto, you didn't have to become Hokage to make Lord Jiraiya proud, he was already proud of you. Every time he was in Konoha he was always boasting about how great you were, how he thought of you as a grandson. So trust me, he was immensely proud of you," Isaribi says. Naruto looks at Isaribi in surprise, before fresh tears enter his eyes. Isaribi allows Naruto to cry on her shoulder while she rubs his back, all the while she keeps her gaze on the stars above. Scene break. Shortly after Naruto helped the cryptical analysis team crack a code left by Lord Jiraiya, then he left for Mount Myoboku to go through senjutsu training. A month later, Pain attacked Konoha. It was a complete disaster for Konoha. No matter how many ninjas they had, Pain was able to obliterate them. The hospital was completely swamped mere minutes after the first strike, and not even Tsunade using Katsuyu, immense network healing, was able to stem the flow. Kakashi bravely fought against two of Pain's body and was able to disable one, but at the cost of his life. Konohamaru also disabled a Pain body and fortunately survived the process. However, Pain grew tired and decided to simply obliterate Konoha with a single jutsu. After Konoha had been turned into a crater, Naruto arrived on the scene. The battle between the two was epic. Naruto with his perfected Sage mode was able to hold his own against Pain, and had destroyed each body beyond repair. However, eventually Pain was able to trap Naruto by piercing him with his black rods and was prepared to take him away, when Isaribi appeared intent on saving Naruto. "Why are you here? You should get back," Naruto says. "Sorry Naruto, I can't do that," Isaribi says. Isaribi begins destroying the black rods, but Pain keeps using his almighty push to blow her away. "Just stop please Isaribi," Naruto begs. "I'm sorry I can't Naruto, because I love you," Isaribi says. Naruto gazes at Isaribi in shock, before Pain sends her up into the sky and then brings her back to earth with a sickening thud. "Isaribi!" Naruto shouts out in shock. Rage, pure unadulterated rage, courses through Naruto's veins as he witnesses Isaribi fall to the ground. Never in his life has he felt this. Suddenly red evil chakra begins pouring out of Naruto and he enters his version 2 state. Pain is pushed back greatly by Naruto's cubified power. Eventually Pain uses the planetary devastation jutsu to trap Naruto in a sphere of earth, but not even this is able to keep Naruto contained. Just as he is about to release the Kyubi, however, a chakra spirit of Minato Namikaze appears and stops Naruto. After fixing the seal, Minato tells Naruto that he is his son, and about what's wrong with the world. Naruto, realizing his father is correct, and that Jiraiya nor Isaribi would want him like this, calms down. Upon exiting his cubified state, Naruto senses that Isaribi is alive, which makes him feel relieved. Naruto then defeats the last pain before making his way to the controller of pain, Nagato. After a long discussing between the pair, Nagato realizes he has dishonored his friend's memory and he gives his life to resurrect everyone who died during his assault on Konoha. After saying goodbye to Konan, Naruto returns to Konoha and is given a hero's welcome. Everyone rushes over to greet him, but he only has eyes on one person, Isaribi, who is leaning on Sakura's shoulders for support. Naruto gulps as he sees her. Before he approaches her slowly, his mind running a mile, and Naruto reaches her, he grabs her in a hug. "I'm glad you're safe," Naruto says. "I'm glad you're safe too," Isaribi says. Naruto and Isaribi then lock eyes. No more words are said between them as they kiss. The watching onlookers cheer, save for Sakura and Hinata. Sakura wishes she had realized what a great guy Naruto is before, but now realizes she doesn't deserve him for all the pain she put him through when they were younger, and to take Naruto away from Isaribi would be selfish on her part, which is why she healed Isaribi as well as she did so Naruto could be happy with a woman who has never hurt him. Hinata meanwhile is regretting being so shy and nervous around Naruto, and now she has lost her chance to be with him forever. When he was chasing Sakura, it wasn't much of a worry for her as Sakura rejected him, but now he was with a woman who loved him and would never hurt him, meaning he would never be hers. Scene break. A few days after the attack, Danzo was made the 6th Hokage by the daimyo. That same day Kumo Ninja arrived claiming Sasuke was a member of the Akatsuki and had taken Killer Bee the Hachibi Jinchuriki. This led to Danzo labeling Sasuke an international criminal and ordering a kill-on-sight order for him. Danzo then left for the Cage Summit in the Land of Iron. Naruto left shortly after with Yamato and Kakashi in order to plead with the Raikage. Shortly after, Sakura, Lee, Kiba and Sai in order to stop Naruto, as the whole Konoha 11 bar Naruto had decided that Sasuke wasn't worth it. Naruto failed in his pleading with the Raikage and Sakura failed in her quest to stop Naruto kill Sasuke. Sasuke had killed Danzo, meaning he wasn't officially named 6th Hokage. Madara declared war on the entire shinobi world in order to capture both Naruto and Killer Bee, who hadn't actually been captured by Sasuke. Tsunade awoke shortly after and resumed her duties as 5th Hokage. Using her considerable political sway, she was able to convince it to allow Naruto to be taught by Killer Bee in how to control the Kyuubi. Before he leaves, Naruto had to give a parting gift to Isaribi. So arriving at his girlfriend's house, Naruto knocks on the door. Isaribi opens it and is surprised to see Naruto. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Isaribi asks. "I'm going of tomorrow. I'm not sure when I'll be back," Naruto says. Isaribi pales a bit at hearing this. "Before I left, I wanted to give you this," Naruto says, placing a necklace with a promise ring around her neck. Isaribi is shocked by Naruto giving her a promise ring. "I know we've only been together for a few days, but..." Naruto gets cut off by Isaribi giving him the most intense kiss ever. Isaribi then invites Naruto into her house and he doesn't leave until the following day. Scene break. The war was over. Sasuke had returned to Konoha and an era of peace had fallen over Konoha. Currently, Isaribi is nervous as she prepares to walk down the aisle. She was only 17, damn it, but a month after the war was finished, she discovered she was pregnant with Naruto's child. This led to a very fast wedding being arranged by Tsunade between the pair. The wedding went off without a hitch, if you don't count all of Naruto's fangirls crying over not being the one with him. A few months later, Isaribi gave birth to a son named Takuma Uzumaki, much to the joy of Naruto. A few years later, Naruto was made 7th Hokage. Isaribi could not believe how her life has turned out. She was a science experiment by Orochimaru and Itachi. She was then hated by her fellow islanders before being saved by a blonde hero who knew her pain. She was then brought to Konoha and cured of her afflictions. She then fell in love with her savior, married him and had his child. All in all, she can honestly say her life turned out great. The Fourth Great Ninja War was over. Many lives had been lost, but the result was the Akatsuki had been defeated once and for all. Peace had also achieved between all the ninja villages. Currently Naruto is resting in the hospital, recovering from the injuries he got in his final fight with Sasuke, where he finally knocked some sense into Duck Butt and brought him back to Konoha. Sadly though, Sasuke isn't in the same room as him. Instead he is in the prison ward since he is still a traitor to Konoha, though Kakashi has said he won't be executed, but he still needs to be punished for his crimes. The door to his hospital room opens and a medical ninja by the name of Hakui enters his room. Hakui has long brown hair that is cut in a Harem cut style, that she has divided over her forehead, where her forehead protector is. "Good morning, Naruto," Hakui says. "Good morning, Hakui," Naruto says. "How are you feeling today?" Hakui asks. "I feel fine. So can I leave now?" Naruto asks. "I'm afraid not. Lady Tsunade has made it a standing order that you are not to leave until she gives the okay," Hakui says. Naruto pouts a bit. "Why are you in such a rush to leave anyway?" Hakui asks. "I just don't like sitting around doing nothing," Naruto says. "Oh really? And here I thought you just didn't enjoy my company," Hakui says in a teasing manner. Naruto grins at her teasing. "And why would you think that?" Naruto asks also in a teasing manner. "Well, it's just you're always sneaking out despite Lady Tsunade's instructions. I just wondered if it was me you were running away from," Hakui says, still teasing. "No, I just get bored easily. Perhaps you could help me alleviate my boredom," Naruto says, still teasing. "I thought you'd never ask," Hakui says. Hakui and Naruto then lock lips and begin making out before moving on to other activities. So you're probably wondering how this came about, right? Well, one day Naruto was sent out on a mission. Said mission was successful, but Naruto got himself banged up so badly he needed a fortnight in the hospital. He also could not bath himself. One day when neither Tsunade, Shizune or Sakura were available, Hakui was giving Naruto a sponge bath. Naruto must have enjoyed it greatly since he got a massive boner during it. Hakui at the time was highly starved, and seeing such a large erection sent her libido into overdrive, and Naruto, letting his hormones take over, lost his virginity that day. Having never had so good, Hakui decided to make Naruto her boyfriend. Of course, with the threat of Akatsuki out there, they kept their relationship a secret. No one else knew, not even Tsunade or the Ichirakus. Scene break. Sasuke is making his way through the hospital. He had gotten special permission to visit Naruto so long as he had an Anbu escort. Said escort was currently hidden. As Sasuke reaches Naruto's room, he hears strange noises coming from it. Curious, he opens the door and instantly regrets it. Closing the door, Sasuke's face is beet red and he is internally panicking. "What's wrong?" the Anbu asks. "I don't think Naruto is up for visitors right now," Sasuke says. This makes the Anbu curious, so the Anbu decides to look in and instantly regrets it. The Anbu closes the door and wonders what to do. "Can you put a silencing barrier around them?" Sasuke asks. The Anbu nods and places a silencing barrier around the room. Scene break. Sakura and the rest of the Konoha 11 are entering the hospital with the intent to visit Naruto. It was also a plus for her that Sasuke had been given special permission to visit Naruto as well, and Sakura had planned their visit to coincide with Sasuke's. As they make their way to Naruto's room, they spot Sasuke standing outside with a stunned expression. "Hey Sasuke. What are you doing out here?" Sakura asks. Sasuke looks up startled and has to think on the fly. "Naruto's in there with a nurse," Sasuke says. "Oh really?" Sakura asks. Sasuke nods. How long have they been in there? Sakura asks. Not long. Sasuke says. Guess we'll just have to wait out here then. Sakura says. As everyone is talking, Hinata is wondering why after Pain's assault, Naruto sought her out and told her he didn't feel the same way about her. Honestly, was she that bad on the eyes? Every other male in Konoha drooled over her, and yet the one she wanted didn't feel the same way. Activating her Byakugan, Hinata lets out a gasp and her face turns beet red. Everyone else turns to see what has startled Hinata, with Sasuke internally cringing at Hinata activating her Byakugan. What's wrong, Hinata? Sakura asks. Hinata doesn't answer, stunned by what her Byakugan showed her. Ino, seeing that Hinata has activated her Byakugan, decides to enter Hinata's mind to see what Hinata's seeing. What Ino sees shocks her almost as badly as it shocked Hinata. Naruto's having in there. Ino exclaims. The entire Konoha 11 save for Hinata have their jaws on the ground at Ino's exclamation. Sakura, however, starts to get angry. That idiot, he starts to get some popularity and he uses it to get in his bed, and honestly, can't this hospital get staff who won't be easily seduced by a famous person? Sakura rants. What do we do? Tenten asks. Wait for him to finish and then pummel him. Hinata, you can go first. Sakura says. He must not be that good, I can't hear anything. Kiba says. That's because I asked my Anbu escort to put a silencing barrier around the room. Sasuke says. Kiba looks at Sasuke incredulously. It can't have been that loud. Kiba says in denial. Sasuke smirks enigmatically. Scene break. Kakashi, Yamato, Kurenai, Guy and Iruka are making their way to the hospital to visit Naruto. It also helped that they heard all their students were visiting Naruto as well, and decided to visit him at the same time. Upon reaching Naruto's room, the four Junin and Iruka are confused as to why all their students and Sasuke are standing outside, all looking gobsmacked save for Sakura, who is looking angry. What are you all doing out here? Yamato asks. Naruto's getting his rocks of in there with some nurse. Sakura exclaims. Kakashi drops his book in surprise, while others become wide-eyed gaping fish. Are you sure? Iruka asks. Yeah, Hinata saw it with her Byakugan. Tenten says. I can't hear anything. Kurenai says, trying to hear if it's true. That's because I asked my Anbu escort to place a silencing barrier around the room. Sasuke repeats. That loud was he? Kakashi asks with a perverted chuckle. He was so proud of his student. Sakura and Kurenai turn to glare at Kakashi. Scene break. Tsunade and Shizune are both making their way to Naruto's hospital room, with the intent to give him a checkup. When they reach his room, however, they find all his friends, their Junin senseis and Iruka standing outside. What's going on here? Tsunade asks. Everyone turns to see an irate Tsunade and everyone but Sakura pales. Sakura instead smiles. Lady Tsunade, Naruto is using his new celebrity status to seduce nurses. Sakura says. He's doing what? Mount Tsunade erupts. How can you be sure? Shizune asks. Hinata saw with her Byakugan and Sasuke asked his Anbu escort to place a silencing barrier around the room. Sakura says. Shizune is stunned by what she has heard while Tsunade is fuming. Damn that Jiraiya, Anbu, remove the barrier at once. Tsunade orders. The Anbu does, and suddenly their ears are assaulted by a loud female voice screaming in ecstasy. Oh God, yes, harder, faster, deeper, oyesssss. The voice of Hakui screams in delight. Many of the females in the corridor get bright red blushes on their faces, while the males are filled with pride at one of their own doing such a good job, save for Kiba, who is stunned by what he is hearing. Looks like you were wrong, Kiba. It seems Naruto is quite good at doing it. Shino says. Hey, that sounds like Hakui. Shizune says. You're right, but she's not a nurse. Sakura says. I assumed it was a nurse. Sasuke says. Tsunade narrows her eyes wondering what is going on. Hikui wasn't the type of woman to be seduced so easily like that. Many more people come to the corridor to find out what is happening, some leave in shock, others remain to witness the fallout. Soon Hikui's screams of ecstasy cease. Tsunade decides to open the door a crack in order to hear what they're saying. That was fantastic as always. Hikui says. Yep. Naruto says. So now that the Akatsuki are gone we can come out about our relationship now, right? Hikui says. Yep. Naruto says. Hikui smiles and begins kissing Naruto again. Deciding not to give the couple a chance for round 2, Tsunade makes her presence known. What's going on here? Tsunade asks. Lady Tsunade, Grandma Tsunade. Hikui and Naruto exclaim in unison. I think you two owe a few people an explanation. Tsunade says. Naruto and Hikui turn and see a few curious people looking in the room. Hikui turns bright red in embarrassment and hides herself under Naruto's sheets. Naruto scratches the back of his head sheepishly before explaining how he and Hikui became an item. Everyone listens intently and are surprised by how long Naruto and Hikui have been together, and how they kept it a secret. Ino prides herself on being the gossip queen of Konoha, and yet she hadn't even heard a whisper of this. She really needed to talk to her sources. Hinata meanwhile finally knows why Naruto told her he didn't feel the same as her. He was already taken. Oddly, this gives her a sense of peace. Kurenai sees this and smiles that her student doesn't seem to cut about this. Tsunade pinches the bridge of her nose wondering how she missed this. She's also wondering if Danzo knew about this. Scene break. Danzo is looking at the scene from the afterlife wondering how he missed this. Scene break. Okay, we'll get out so you can both make yourselves decent, and in the future try and keep these activities to your homes. Tsunade says. Naruto and Hikui nod as Tsunade leaves the room, closing the door behind her. That was so embarrassing. Hikui says. Yeah, it was, but at least now we don't have to hide us. Naruto says. That is a good thing. Hikui says. Scene break. In less than a day the whole of Konoha knew about the relationship between Naruto and Hikui. Most of them are shocked, never having expected those two would wind up together, but then again stranger things have happened. After Naruto was discharged from the hospital, Tsunade had the hospital bed he was using burned. A month later Hikui received some startling news: she was pregnant. Upon telling Naruto he fainted. After recovering he proposed to her. They were wed shortly after. A few months after that Hikui gave birth to a daughter who they named Naomi Uzumaki. The Fourth Great Ninja War is over, the Akatsuki have been defeated and Sasuke has returned to Konoha. This was all possible thanks to Naruto Uzumaki. The young Jinchuriki has gone from village pariah to hero of the ninja world. Currently a young girl is making her way to Konoha. She has messy purple hair, amber eyes, red lipstick, markings under her eyes, wearing a Hapuri-styled forehead protector with the exception of the two extensions upward, a sleeveless pink kimono with a furry collar, a necklace consisting of rings attached together by red strings, ending a tassel to the left, furry wristbands on each wrist followed by bandages that go up to her elbows, a violet skirt and dark brown pants that have furry endings right below her knees, the rest being bandaged up. The markings on her forehead protector indicate she is from Umegakure. Her name is Ruka Tenro and right now she is a woman on a mission. She had to see him, she had to assure herself he was okay. Ever since he had saved her from the three heads and Gensui she had kept in contact with him, the him being Naruto Uzumaki. When she first met him she had tried to kill him thinking he had attacked her village with the Kyuubi, but it had all been a ruse by Gensui so that the three heads would be unleashed. Fortunately Naruto had saved her and her comrades. Since then the two have remained in contact and had gotten quite close. This was not the only reason for her visit to Konoha, however. She also has a letter for Tsunade, the fifth Hokage, from her father Enzo Tenro, the leader of Umegakure. What the letter says she has no idea, but when she was given the letter her father had a bit of a grin on his face, that she did not like. Arriving at the gates of Konoha, Ruka gives her papers to the two Chunin guarding the gates, then makes her way into the village. Scene break. Tsunade, the fifth Hokage of Konoha, is currently in her office doing paperwork. This is only to pass the time, however, as what she is really doing is waiting for a visitor from Umegakure who is delivering a letter to her from Enzo. She already knows who is delivering the letter and hopes she can forgive her and her father for the deception they are doing, but it is really the only way for this to happen. Shortly after the defeat of the three heads, there was some tension between Konoha and Umegakure. To ease this tension, both Tsunade and Enzo came up with a political marriage between his daughter Ruka and Naruto Uzumaki, the one who had stopped the three heads in Gensui. However, at the time the Fourth Great Ninja War was just declared, so she and Enzo had decided to hold off on the marriage until after things had settled down, and now they had. The reason for neither Ruka and Naruto knowing about this was simple. They were both free-spirited individuals who valued their freedom of choice. If they discovered that they were in an arranged marriage, well, let's just say things wouldn't be pleasant. Sure, the two had gotten close just by writing to one another, but still the fact they have been forced together would not sit well with either one. There was also the fact that Naruto had started growing a fan club of young women, both ninja and civilian. Though the two biggest threats were no longer there, they being Hinata Hyuga and Sakura Haruno. Hinata had been in love with Naruto since a very young age, but her shyness prevented her from confessing to him until the pain assault, that is. Naruto, however, did not feel the same, however, and told her as much shortly after. As for Sakura, Naruto had been in love with her since a very young age, but over time his feelings for her vanished. Now the two are just good friends. However, there were still plenty of women after Naruto, and some of them were pursuing him with the same intensity Sakura and Ino pursued Sasuke with. Suddenly there is knocking on the door. Knowing who it is, Tsunade lets them in. Ruka enters the office and Tsunade smiles. "Welcome to Konoha, Ruka Tenro." Tsunade says politely. "Thank you for giving me easy access." Ruka says, knowing that it would normally be more difficult to enter Konoha, especially after the end of a war. Ruka then hands Tsunade the letter from her father. "This is the letter my father asked me to deliver to you." Ruka says. "Thank you. I know you're interested in going to see Naruto, so you may." Tsunade says. Ruka is shocked by this, as normally a messenger would be required to be present for the reading and await the response. Deciding not to look a gift horse in the mouth, Ruka leaves to head for the hospital. Tsunade smiles as she reads the letter, which basically says that Enzo will be arriving in Konoha in 2 days, so he and Tsunade could both tell Naruto and Ruka about their arranged marriage. Scene break. Naruto Uzumaki is currently sitting in his hospital bed, bored out of his mind. Normally he would be trying to escape, however right now he was safer here than out there, since right now his newly formed fan club is waiting outside the hospital, just waiting to ambush him. Honestly, he used to be envious of Sasuke for having loads of girls after him, and though he was gay for ignoring them, but now he understood exactly why he did. A person suddenly enters the room and Naruto is surprised by who it is, for in his room is Ruka Tenro. "Ruka, what are you doing here?" Naruto asks, not that he wasn't happy to see her. "I was in Konoha on business and thought I'd check on you, after the latest mess you got yourself in." Ruka says, teasing. "And here I thought you cared." Naruto says, also teasing. "Oh please, it's not like you were seriously hurt with a hangnail or something." Ruka says, still teasing. "Oh, I don't know, I mean the scratch on my cheek was really serious, it's what got me in the hospital in the first place." Naruto says, still teasing. Ruka snorts before looking over Naruto and her heart breaks a little seeing his injuries, the thing that makes her worry the most is the missing arm. Naruto, seeing this, decides to ease her worry. Don't worry about the missing arm. Grandma Tsunade is making me a prosthetic arm. Naruto says. This does ease her worries a bit. So tell me what exactly happened. There have been loads of rumors, but I'd rather hear from the horse's mouth. Ruka says. So Naruto launches into a full-blown account of the Fourth Great Ninja War, based on his own account, and on the accounts of others who also fought in the war. There is a moment, however, when Naruto falters as he talks about Neji's death. Ruka sees this and gives him a comforting hug. Thanks, Ruka. Naruto says, thanking her for the hug. Naruto continues all the way to his fight with Sasuke. Ruka is shocked by what Naruto told her. Most of it seemed unbelievable, but she knows Naruto would never lie like that, embellish maybe but not outright lie. Wow. Is all that Ruka can say. Yeah, I know it sounds unbelievable, but I assure you it's all true. Naruto says. Oh, I don't know, I wouldn't put it past you to embellish a bit. Ruka says. Hey, maybe a little. Naruto says sheepishly. Ruka smirks before the two discuss other things, such as what Ruka's been up to and the newfound peace between the ninja villages. Scene break. Ruka is making her way to the hospital to visit Naruto. It's been 2 days since she arrived in Konoha and she is still waiting so she can deliver Tsunade's response to her father. Whatever was in that letter must have been important for Tsunade to need to take more than a day to form a response. As she enters the room where Naruto is, she is startled by the fact that both her father and Tsunade are there. What's Dad doing here? If he was going to come to Konoha as well, then why did he send me with a letter? Ruka thinks. Ah, Ruka, you're here. Please sit down. Me and Tsunade have something to tell you and Naruto. Enzo says, looking apologetic. This sends alarm bells in Ruka's and Naruto's heads. Ruka sits and both Tsunade and Enzo explain to the pair about the arranged marriage between them. Naruto and Ruka are both infuriated by what they are being told. For Ruka, it was simply that her right to choose her future was being stripped from her. But for Naruto, it was something much deeper. On the day of his birth, he was chosen to be a sacrifice to keep the Kyuubi at bay, not even old enough to choose. This, however, basically gave him a very limited possible futures to choose, but the one thing he thought he could choose was who his future would lie with. Hell, this village owed him at least that. For all the crap he had to put up with, he goes to open his mouth to protest but is cut off by Tsunade. I'm sorry, Naruto, I really am, but I'm afraid there's no backing out. Tsunade says, sounding genuinely sorry, as Enzo nods in agreement, also look apologetic. Naruto's protest dies in his throat at Tsunade's words. Instead, he just glowers at her. Is there a date set for the wedding? Ruka grounds out. Anytime in the next 2 years. Enzo says. Thank God for small miracles. That should give us plenty of time to get used to this and at least figure out a tolerable coexistence. Ruka and Naruto think in unison. We'll both leave so you can discuss things between yourselves. Tsunade says as she and Enzo both leave. Naruto and Ruka watch them leave and then turn to face each other. They both look away from each other, blushing. It's amazing how a change of circumstances can change how a person sees another person. Just yesterday they were friends who had no problem looking at the other, yet now they were engaged, albeit against their will, and couldn't even look at each other. Sorry. Naruto finally says. Why are you apologizing? Ruka asks. Because if I had only not rebuked Hinata's advances, you wouldn't have gotten me for a husband. Naruto says. Then I'd probably be hitched to someone I don't know. At least with you I know what I'm getting into. Ruka says. Your father wouldn't have done that to you. Naruto says. He might have for the village, if he felt that the benefits for the village were good enough. Ruka says. Naruto grunts before looking at her again. This time they are able to hold each other's gaze. So what do we do now? How are we going to get used to this? Naruto asks. Maybe a few dates. get to know each other on a more personal level. Ruka says. A thought suddenly crosses Naruto's mind. We're going to have to be careful about my fangirls. Naruto says. You have fangirls? Ruka asks surprised. Saving the world tends to get you fangirls. Naruto says. Ruka smirks at her fiancé's words, while internally thinking she doesn't need to worry about any fangirls. Scene break. The next few months were slightly awkward for Naruto and Ruka. When news got out that Naruto and Ruka were engaged, many of Naruto's fangirls became enraged and tried to either attack Ruka, or for those with influential parents get the marriage cancelled. Neither option worked. For Naruto and Ruka, however, they went on many dates, each one slightly less awkward than the last. The two had also moved into a house together, each with their own room. Soon the two had become comfortable around each other that they finally set a date for the wedding, the day of Naruto's birth. The wedding was the largest ever attended in the elemental nations. Thousands of people flocked to Konoha to see the wedding, including all the daimyos and village leaders. Ruka had never been so nervous in her life as she walked down the aisle. The nerves were not due to her marriage to Naruto. Oh no, she was nervous about being seen by so many people. They really should have made this a private ceremony. How she got through the whole thing without making a fool out of herself she did not know. Unknown to her, similar thoughts were going through her new husband's head. Scene break. 2 years have passed since the wedding, and a few hours since Ruka had given birth to a healthy baby girl named Shinatsu Uzumaki. As Naruto holds his beautiful baby girl in his arms, he can't help but think on how his life turned out. Sure, it hadn't turned out how he and Ruka had planned, but neither would trade it for the world. Sari and Kankuro are standing in the office of the Cage as Gaara tells them of their latest assignment. Sari and Kankuro are going to be part of a joint mission with 2 shinobi from Konoha. For the past few months, a group of rogue shinobi have been wreaking havoc along the border connecting the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind. The newly formed Shinobi Union are worried this is another Akatsuki forming, have decided to crush them before they become an even bigger threat. Since they seem to be active in the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind, it was decided that Konoha and Suna would crush them. Is that understood? Gaara asks. Yes, Lord Cage. Sari and Kankuro say in unison. Good, I expect this mission to be completed with no problems. Dismissed. Gaara says. Sari and Kankuro both bow before leaving. Scene break. Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of Kurama and hero of the shinobi world, is currently tree hopping along with Shino Aburame. The two are on their way to the Land of Wind to participate in a joint mission with 2 Suna shinobi. We're almost at the meeting point. Shino says. Then let's return to the ground. Naruto says. Shino nods and the two jump down to the ground and walk from there. The two only have to walk a short while before they encounter Sari and Kankuro. Both sides are shocked to see who the other village sent. Hey Naruto, Shino, I'm surprised to see you two are here. Kankuro says, coming out of his shock first. Yeah, Shino and I both volunteered for this. Naruto says. And we are surprised you are here as well. Shino says. Well, I volunteered, and I picked Sari here to accompany me since all the other high-level shinobi are away on missions, or are needed to defend Suna. Kankuro says. Sari, who has been standing silently observing the interaction, is highly surprised by who Konoha sent. She never would have guessed she'd be working alongside Naruto Uzumaki, hero of the shinobi world. As she continues staring at him, she can't help but blush over how good he looks. She also can't help but remember the last time she met him. Back then he was a nobody in her eyes and the eyes of many people. Gaara had just been resurrected by Lady Chiyo and she and her friend Matsuri had rushed over to Gaara, knocking Naruto away, who had been next to Gaara at the time. God, I was such a bitch to him back then. He probably hates me. Sari thinks. Naruto then approaches Sari and holds out his hand. Sari, right. I hope we get to know each other after this mission. Naruto says with his trademark grin. Sari is shocked by this. I guess he doesn't remember me. Sari thinks. Sari then takes Naruto's hand and shakes it. I am happy to be working alongside you, Lord Naruto. Sari says as formally as possible. Please don't call me Lord, just call me Naruto. Naruto says. Sari is again surprised by being allowed to call someone as noble as Naruto by his name without the title. Okay, Naruto. Sari says, slightly nervous. Kankuro chuckles as he observes the interaction. He hasn't changed much, has he? Kankuro asks. Naruto will always be Naruto. Shino says simply. Okay, let's start planning the assault. Kankuro commands. Scene break. The mission was complete. The rogue group was vanquished with the members being either captured or killed. So now the group of shinobi were camping under the stars, as tomorrow both pairs return to their respective villages. Right now Sari is taking watch while the others sleep, or are supposed to be sleeping. Want some company? Naruto asks. Sari is surprised having not sensed Naruto approaching her. Naruto, what are you doing awake? Sari asks. I always have difficulty sleeping after battles unless I use up most of my chakra. Naruto says. Sari nods before gesturing that it was okay for Naruto to join her. Naruto takes a seat beside Sari, before gazing up at the stars. Sari looks at him strangely before also gazing up at the stars, yet while Naruto looks at them with contentment, Sari is just wondering what the point is. The stars sure are beautiful tonight. Naruto says. Yeah, I guess. Sari responds, not understanding where Naruto is coming from. Before the war one never bothered to appreciate the beauty of stuff like stars, yet afterwards I came to enjoy viewing them, Naruto says. Sari knows this time what Naruto is talking about, though she herself didn't fight. Unlike Matsuri and Yukata, she did notice the changes of some shinobi who did survive. Some became more easygoing than they were before, some became more peace-loving, while the rest were dropped out of the shinobi forces due to PTSD. I guess even a hero like Lord Naruto doesn't come out of war unscathed. Sari thinks. The two then drop into a semi-comfortable silence, Sari keeping a watch on the surroundings, while Naruto keeps observing the stars above, knowing that if there was danger, Kurama would let him know. Sari, however, is unable to take the silence. She was also feeling the need to apologize for how she treated him last time they met. I'm sorry. Sari says. Naruto turns to look at her confused. What are you apologizing for? Naruto asks. For how I treated you the last time we met. Sari says. Naruto is confused by what she is talking about, before remembering that she had knocked him over to get to Gaara. Don't worry about it. Naruto says. Sari is stunned over Naruto forgiving her so easily. Naruto, seeing this, decides to elaborate. You saw your cage and someone you admire was alive and well. Of course you were going to want to check on him yourself, regardless of who was next to him. Besides, if you think you merely knocking me over is bad, then you should have seen what Sasuke's fangirls used to do in order to sit next to him in class. Naruto says with a chuckle, remembering some of those incidents with Sasuke's fangirls. Sari looks at Naruto strangely, wondering what the Sasuke fangirls used to do. What did those fangirls do in order to sit next to Sasuke? Sari asks curiously. Naruto chuckles again, before going into detail some of the incidents involving Sasuke's fangirls in their mission to sit next to Sasuke. Most of those incidents involved him getting beaten up by said fangirls. It's strange really, when he was younger he got sad thinking about those incidents, yet now he can look at them with amusement. Sari laughs along with Naruto as he recounts each incident, until she falls asleep with her head laying down on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto blushes a bit at having Sari put her head across his shoulder. He then decides to take her to her tent so she can sleep peacefully, while he keeps watch for the rest of the night. The following morning Sari awakens in her tent confused. The last thing she remembers was listening to Naruto, as he recounted all the incidents of Sasuke's fangirls trying to sit next him. Sari suddenly sits up with a start as she remembers falling asleep on watch. Shit. Sari curses before exiting her tent. When she does, she is greeted to a strange scene. Naruto is cooking a boar over a spit, while another Naruto is lathering it with barbecue sauce, while Kankuro and Shino wait patiently for food to be served. Good morning, grab a plate and take a seat, breakfast is nearly done. The Naruto turning the spit says. Sari was expecting a reprimand for falling asleep on watch, so she is confused by this casual greeting. By the way, I'm sorry for distracting you during your watch. You were meant to wake Shino up 30 minutes after you fell asleep. Naruto says. That explains the lack of a reprimand. She hadn't fallen asleep during her scheduled watch, therefore a reprimand isn't needed. Sari then grabs a plate and sits down next to Kankuro. A couple of minutes later Naruto serves them all food after dispelling his clone. To Kankuro's and Shino's surprise, the food is actually good. Naruto could make something other than ramen, who knew? Damn Naruto, you can actually cook. Kankuro says. Well, I am an orphan, so of course I would learn how to cook. Naruto says. I must admit to being surprised you could make something other than ramen. Shino says. True, ramen is what I mostly cook, but I did learn to cook other things. After all, even ramen gets boring if you eat it all the time. Naruto says, to the shock of Kankuro and Shino. Who are you and what have you done with Naruto? Kankuro asks. Naruto chuckles at Kankuro's question. I'm still the same as ever, Kankuro. You've just never seen this side to me. Naruto says. Sari observes the interaction between the three and is a little jealous of how easy they are around each other. Not even the interactions between herself, Matsuri and Yukata were that relaxed, and those two were her best friends. Soon they finish eating and the two pairs separate for their respective villages, but not before Naruto gives Sari a note telling her how to contact him. Scene break. Months pass and Sari and Naruto keep in contact with each other. Sari in that time has gained an appreciation for stargazing. The two had also arranged rendezvous with each other. At first it was just two friends from different villages hanging out, but over time things changed, slowly at first, but soon the two began to notice an attraction between each other. This, however, led to a slight problem. Tamari was already entering into a relationship with Shikamaru, thus she would be leaving Suna for Konoha, and there was no way Suna would allow another of their shinobis to leave Suna for Konoha. Likewise, Konoha would never allow Naruto to join another village, and he'd never leave anyway since he still dreamed of becoming Hokage. So for now the two young lovers will just have to stick to these secret rendezvous, in order to show their love. Scene break. A few years have gone by and Sari and Naruto are still together. The council of Konoha is growing concerned by the fact Naruto is still single, when all his age mates have entered relationships. It's not like he's in a short supply of suitors either, yet for one reason or another he rejects them all, but enough about that. Right now Sari is staring at a pregnancy test in shock. It was positive. How this had happened she had no idea. She and Naruto always used protection, yet despite her using the pill and Naruto using condoms she had gotten pregnant. Sari, are you okay? The voice of Matsuri asks. Yeah, just give me a moment. Sari responds. Okay. Matsuri says. As the sound of Matsuri's footsteps fade away, Sari wonders if she truly is okay. God, how was she going to explain this? No use crying over spilled milk. I should tell Naruto first so then we can come up with a plan. Sari thinks. Scene break. A few days later Sari is explaining to Naruto about her pregnancy. Naruto is shocked over the fact that he is going to be a father. What are we going to do? Sari asks desperately. We have no choice but to inform our respective villages, and hopefully withstand the shitstorm that follows. Naruto says. Who do we tell first? Sari asks, nodding. Let's tell Gaara first. Naruto says, knowing that if they told Kakashi first he'd be in for a very long lecture, that and Tsunade would find out and pummel him to death. Okay, follow me. Sari says. Scene break. Gaara is not a man who shows emotion quite easily, yet at this moment he is trying his damned hardest to not crush his closest friend in sand. It's not the fact that he got one of his shinobi pregnant, no, it was the fact he hadn't told him about their relationship, over some silly notion that it would cause an international incident between Konoha and Suna. Honestly, the man was the hero of the shinobi world. If he requested every woman in every village he would get it, he really needed to learn how to use his status as hero to get things. Thank you for telling me this, though I'm disappointed that you didn't bother telling me from the start, though I will be sad to lose. Sorry, I wish you both a happy future. Gaara says. Both Naruto and Sari are shocked. This was not the reaction they expected. Hell, Naruto was half expecting to have to run from a sand tsunami. Gaara just shakes his head at the two's reaction. I'll have the paperwork on my end sorted so Sari can become a Konoha citizen. I'll also have a message sent to Konoha, so they have a chance to process the information before you arrive. Otherwise, certain people will most likely try and either kill you for not being careful, or for not telling them. Gaara says. Naruto pales slightly, knowing who some of those people will be. Scene break. Naruto was right. As soon as he and Sari had reached the gates of Konoha, they were accosted by a very pissed of Tsunade, an angry Sakura and a miffed Ino. Tsunade was pissed that Naruto had been careless enough to get a girl pregnant. Sakura was angry that Naruto had kept the fact he was in a relationship a secret. Ino was miffed that Naruto had kept a secret from her gossiping sources. After apologizing to the three enraged women and introducing Sari to them, Naruto then takes Sari on a tour of Konoha. While doing so, Naruto decided to propose to Sari on top of the Hokage mountain. Scene break. A few months later, Naruto and Sari were wed, in the largest ever wedding the shinobi world had ever seen. A few months after that, Sari gave birth to a daughter named Junko Uzumaki. Neither Naruto or Sari ever expected their lives to wind up as they did, but they are both thankful that they did. The battle against Morio has just finished and Shien and Naruto are observing the aftermath. Behind them are Kakashi, Sakura, Neji, Lee and Temari. Shien can't help but look at Naruto with a blush. Here she was prepared to give her life in order to stop Morio, yet this shinobi who didn't even know her was determined not to allow her to do so, and through sheer determination and willpower, had managed to defeat Morio without succumbing to the fate she had foreseen for him. He truly was a marvel, and Shien has realized she has fallen in love with him. The mission is over, so now he has to leave, but I don't want him to go, but I can't go with him due to my duties, and Konoha will never allow him to stay. Shien thinks despondently. Well, guess this is goodbye, Shien. Naruto says, slightly sad. Yes, thank you for all you've done in saving me and for showing me that fate can be changed. Shien says, trying to keep the sadness out of her voice. Here, take this, it'll allow us to send messages to one another. Naruto says, passing Shien a piece of paper with an intricate seal on it. Shien looks at Naruto with confusion. Just apply chakra and follow the instructions. Naruto says with a grin. Shien nods as a group of her soldiers appear to take her home. The shinobi then leave while waving goodbye. Scene break. Shien is sitting alone in her bedroom looking at the paper in confusion. Naruto said to apply chakra and follow the instructions, yet there are no instructions that she can see. Perhaps they only appear after chakra has been applied. Shien thinks. So Shien applies chakra to the paper. When she does, a poof of smoke appears and from it a red toad appears. Shien looks at the toad in surprise before she screams, which makes the toad cover its ears. The door to her room then opens and a guard sticks his head in, just as the toad hides under the sheet. Is everything alright, Lady Xian? The guard asks. Yes, everything is fine. Xian replies. Once the guard leaves, the toad comes out from under the sheets. Man, you are load, sister. The toad says. I'm sorry, I just wasn't expecting a. You can talk? Xian asks in surprise. Of course I can talk, I'm a summon, all summons can talk. So anyway, how did I get here? The toad asks. I sent chakra to that paper. Xian says. The toad looks at the paper and harumphs. Typical Naruto, and I'm guessing from your reaction he didn't tell you what would happen. The toad asks. No, he didn't, he just said to apply chakra and follow the instructions. Xian says, slightly annoyed. The toad harumphs again. Well, since that knucklehead didn't bother explaining properly, allow me. My name is Kosuke, I'm a messenger toad from Mount Myoboku. That piece of paper is given to our summoners to give to others so that they can remain in contact with one another. Whenever you have a message to give to Naruto, just apply chakra, and me or another messenger toad will appear to take the message to him. Likewise, if he has a message for you, that piece of paper will allow us to appear before you with the message. Kosuke says. Well, that sounds simple. Why didn't Naruto just tell me that? Xian asks, her annoyance increasing. Either he didn't have time, or he thought it'd be funny. My guess, knowing him, it'd be the latter option, Kosuke says. I agree. Xian says. Well, if you're not too angry with him, would you like to send him a message? Kosuke asks. Yes, I would. Wait here a moment. Xian says, standing up. Xian walks over to her writing desk, grabs a piece of paper and a pen and starts writing a message for Naruto. The message is as follows. Dead Naruto. Thank you for the piece of paper you gave, and thank you even more for not giving me exact details on what it does. Anyway, I'm back home now and it's all thanks to you. Despite you not telling me what the paper did, I am truly happy that you gave me it so that we can remain in contact. Hope you are well, Xian. Xian looks over the letter and is happy with how it turned out. She then hands the letter to Kosuke. Here, take this to Naruto as quickly as possible. Xian says. You got it. Kosuke says, poofing away. Scene break. Naruto is sitting in his apartment having just got back from his mission to help Xian. A poof of smoke suddenly signals the arrival of Kosuke. Hey Naruto, I got a message for you from Xian. Kosuke says. That was fast, I wasn't expecting a message for a couple more days, so she can get back to her normal routine. Naruto says, surprised. Well, here it is. I don't think she was too happy with you not explaining the paper her. Kosuke says sternly. Ah, come on, it was just harmless fun. I bet her reaction was hilarious. Naruto says. Not for me, it wasn't. Kosuke says. Sorry. Naruto apologizes. Next time you give one of those away, tell them what it does explicitly. Kosuke says. Okay. Okay, can I have the message now? Naruto says. Yeah, sure, here you go. Kosuke says, handing the message to Naruto before poofing away. Naruto opens the message and smiles as he reads it. It's just how he imagined her message would be. Chuckling to himself, Naruto decides to write her a message tomorrow. Scene break. Xian is in her chambers brushing her hair when a poof of smoke signals the arrival of Kosuke. Hello Kosuke, I take it Naruto has a message for me. Xian says. Yes, he does. Here you go. Kosuke says, handing her Naruto's message, before poofing away. Xian opens Naruto's message and reads it. The message is as follows. Dear Xian, I'm sorry for not telling you exactly what the paper did, but I figured you could do with a laugh now that you're surrounded by boring stiffs 24/7 again. Sorry if the opposite happened. Thanks for the message you sent me. I'm happy that you're happy with my gift. Hope to hear from you soon. Naruto. Xian smiles after reading the letter, and looking back at her first meeting with Kosuke, she has to admit it was funny. Scene break. For over a month Naruto and Xian send messages to one another, Shion would write about her day, which was rather mundane, yet Naruto was interested learning what she did. Naruto meanwhile would write about missions he did and the training he was undergoing. One day Shion is entering her chambers and is surprised to see Kosuke waiting for her. She is surprised since normally she was the one who sent the first message, with Naruto being the one to respond. Naruto only sent the first message if something big happened, so deciding to see what the message is, she approaches Kosuke. "Hello Kosuke, I'm surprised to see you here." Shion says. "Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but something major must have happened since when I arrived to take the message, he had tear stains on his face." Kosuke says. Shion looks gobsmacked at Kosuke while also paling slightly. What the hell happened to make Naruto cry? He may get sad on occasion, but he's never got depressed enough to shed tears. Shion thinks. "Give me the message now." Shion orders. Kosuke nods and passes the message to Shion, who promptly opens the message while Kosuke puffs away. The message reads as follows. "Dear Shion, I'm not sure if you've heard, but a few days ago the Akatsuki entered the land of fire searching for me. They killed many monks at Fire Temple, including the head monk for Fire Temple Chiraku, and later they killed Asuma Sensei. I must admit I didn't know either very well, but still they died because of me, because I hold the Kyuubi within me. The worst part about it all is the fact that Asuma was going to be a father. He and Kurenai Sensei were going to have a baby together, and now that child will grow up without a father, and Kurenai will have to raise the child on her own, and it's all my fault. It's my fault the Akatsuki entered the land of fire, it's my fault they attacked Fire Temple and killed those monks, and it's my fault they killed Asuma Sensei. My fault Kurenai lost the man she loved, and my fault their child will grow up without a father. There is nothing else after this, and Shion is panicking greatly because she is afraid of what Naruto will do in his current mindset. So right now she is desperately trying to find a pen and paper, so she can send a message to Naruto ASAP. Finally she finds what she's looking for and begins to write her message, which reads as followed. Dear Naruto, it is not your fault, none of it. Not the Akatsuki attacking Fire Temple, not the deaths of the monks or the death of Asuma, nor is it your fault that Kurenai lost her love, or that their child will grow up without a father. If anyone is to blame, it's the Akatsuki. You didn't ask for your burden, nor did you ask for a group of psychopaths to hunt after you, so please do not blame yourself for the actions of others. Hope to hear from you soon, love. Shino. Shino looks over the letter and hopes it will be enough to knock Naruto out of his funk. She wishes she could be with him in person, but once again her duty forces her to remain where she is. She grabs the paper used to summon toads and applies chakra to it. A poof of smoke and Kosuke arrives. Yo, what can I do for you? Kosuke asks. Take this to Naruto as fast as you can. Shion says, giving Kosuke the message. Damn, that was fast. You guys normally wait a day before replying to each other. Kosuke says, taking the message. I know, but this is urgent. Shion says. Got ya. Kosuke says, poofing away. Shino just hopes that her message is enough. Scene break. Naruto is sitting in his apartment just staring blankly into space. For the past few days since he learned of Asuma's death, Naruto has been beating himself up and blaming himself. This got worse when he learned of the attack on Fire Temple, and of Kurenai's pregnancy with Asuma's death. Since then he's shut himself up in his apartment and not shown himself in public. He just knows that the villagers blame him. It wasn't anything new, they always blamed him for something or other, so he just stopped listening to them. But he doesn't want to see blame in the eyes of those he considers precious, such as Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Konohamaru and Kurenai. He just knows that they blame him as well. Hell, he blames himself as well. A poof of smoke alerts him to the arrival of Kosuke. She replied, that fast did she? Naruto asks in a dead voice. She did. Kosuke says, passing the message to Naruto before poofing away. Naruto looks at the unopened message in fear. He doesn't want to read it as he knows what she'll have written. She'll have written that it is his fault, and that she doesn't want to hear from him again. Why he wrote to her he had no idea, maybe it was to just a way to confess his sins or something. Deciding to just get it over with, he opens the message and is shocked by what he reads. She doesn't think it's my fault and she wants to keep in contact with me. Is the thought that keeps repeating itself through Naruto's head. There is also a word in the message that confuses him. The word is love. Never had Shion ever written that in any of her messages before, and it confused him greatly of why she would write that. Was she trying to say she loved him? Was she just trying to comfort him by adding it? These questions and more run through Naruto's head and he can't answer any of them. A knock on his door snaps him out of his thoughts. Confused by who would be knocking on his door, Naruto goes to answer it. Opening his door, he is shocked to see Kurenai standing in front of him. What's Kurenai-sensei doing here? Is she here to kill me for what happened to Asuma-sensei? Naruto thinks. May I come in, Naruto? Kurenai asks in a tone that gives nothing away. Naruto nods and allows her entrance into his apartment. Thank you, Naruto. Kurenai says. May I ask what brings you here, Kurenai-sensei? Naruto asks somewhat tepidly. You may. The reason I'm here is because your friends are worried about you. Kurenai says, shocking Naruto. They're worried about me? Naruto asks, confused. Yes, they are. You haven't been seen since Asuma's funeral, and I think I know why. You're blaming yourself, aren't you? Kurenai asks, though both she and Naruto knew it wasn't a question. Well, it is my fault. Naruto begins to say but gets cut off by a slap from Kurenai. No, it is not, and to think so is an insult to Asuma. Kurenai says. But it. Naruto tries to say again but is cut off this time by a glare from Kurenai. Listen here, Naruto, it is not your fault, so don't blame yourself. The only people to blame are the Akatsuki. You were given a heavy burden at birth, one that no one had any right to give you, so please don't place any more burdens on yourself that are underserved. Kurenai says softly. But don't you blame me. Don't Shikamaru, Ino, Choji or Konohamaru blame me. Don't the villagers blame me? Naruto asks. Kurenai looks at Naruto in shock, not expecting those questions. That's why he's been blaming himself, because he thinks others are blaming him. Kurenai realizes. No, Naruto, no one blames you. Not me, not Shikamaru, not Ino, not Choji, not Konohamaru, and not the villagers. Kurenai says. But the villagers are always blaming me for something. Naruto says. Naruto, haven't you been paying attention to the villagers? Kurenai asks incredulously. No, I got tired of them blaming me for stuff, so I started to ignore them until it got to the point I've naturally stopped noticing them. Naruto says. Kurenai sighs. Naruto, ever since the Oto invasion, where you saved Konoha from Gaara, the villagers have been singing your praises, and they keep doing so after each of your accomplishments. Kurenai says with a smile. Naruto is stunned while also internally kicking himself. All his life he's wanted acknowledgement and he had apparently been getting it for 3 years, yet he hadn't noticed because he had grown a habit of ignoring the villagers. I really am an idiot sometimes. Naruto thinks as fresh tears begin welling up in his eyes. Kurenai, seeing this, hugs Naruto and lets him cry into her shoulder as Naruto cries tears of relief over the fact that no one blamed him. Soon Naruto cries himself to sleep, so Kurenai puts him to bed. As she does, she notices a message in Naruto's hand. Wondering what it is, Kurenai takes it out of Naruto's hand and reads it. Shion, that's the priestess from the land of demons that Naruto saved, so he kept in contact with her. It also seems he trusts her enough to tell her of his feelings. I can also tell from how she wrote this that she feels more than friendship for Naruto. Kurenai thinks. Kurenai then leaves, intending to send a message to Shion. Scene break. A week later, Shion is once again in her chambers when a poof of smoke alerts her to Kosuke's arrival. A message for you from Naruto. Thank you for using Toad Post. Kosuke says, putting the message down before poofing away. Shion laughs at Kosuke's joke before picking the message up. The message reads as follows. Dear Shion, thanks for your last message, it really helped me get out of my funk. Another thing that helped was Kurenai-sensei coming to see me, and explicitly telling me that I was not to blame. Hearing her say that was a great relief to me. A couple days after your message arrived, those two Akatsuki goons showed up again, but this time we were able to defeat them without anyone dying. I hope that the loss of two more of their members will make them stop what they're doing, but I highly doubt it. I hope to hear from you soon, love. Naruto. Shion looks over the letter and smiles, happy that Naruto was no longer blaming himself. She also looks over the word love and is slightly confused by Naruto using it. Naruto using it could mean so many things. Did he love her? Did he only think of her as a friend and only used it because she did first? So many questions ran through her mind. I never should have written love in that last message. I only did it to comfort him while also letting it out slowly that I love him. But no matter how much I do, my duties prevent us from ever being together. Shion thinks. A knock on her door snaps her out of her thoughts. Yes, who is it? Shion asks. Lady Shion, a message has just arrived for you, from Konoha. A guard says. Shion is confused. Who else in Konoha other than Naruto would write to me? And he can send messages through his toads. Shion thinks. Bring it in then. Shion orders. Yes, milady. The guard says, entering and handing Shion the message. Thank you. Shion says, taking the message. The guard bows and then leaves. When he does, Shion opens the message and begins to read it. The message is as follows. Dear Lady Shion, I know you've never met me before, but my name is Kurenai Yuhi. I let my curiosity get the better of me and read your response to Naruto, for which I am sorry. That being said, I would like to thank you for helping Naruto. Despite Naruto having many friends, he seldom expresses his true feelings, so I'm glad he has someone he can confide in. I just wish you were here in Konoha so that you could help him in person. Anyway, like I said, I'm glad Naruto has someone he can confide in. Thank you for reading this. Kurenai. As Shion finishes reading, she is in shock. She figured that Naruto had other people he confided in besides her, yet apparently he didn't. It made her happy in a way that Naruto trusted her enough to confide in her like that. It also made it apparent to her that Naruto did love her, even if he wasn't truly aware of it yet. This was both a happy and sad fact. Happy in that Naruto on some level reciprocated her feelings, and sad because her duties prevented them from being together. Scene break. Despite Shion knowing that she and Naruto couldn't be together, she couldn't stop writing to him and learning of his adventures. She also hasn't stopped using the word love, whenever finishing her messages, and neither has Naruto. One day while she is in her chambers, Kosuke arrives with another message. Smiling, Shion takes the message as Kosuke leaves. The message is as follows. Dear Shion, I wish I had some better news for you, but I'm afraid I don't. A couple of days ago I found out my master Jiraiya of the Sannin died while fighting the Akatsuki leader, a guy called Pain. Don't worry though, you don't have to snap me out of a funk again this time. That being said, I'm really confused right now. Jiraiya strove for peace in this world and preached about forgiveness, and yet I can't bring myself to forgive Pain. I'm worried that this makes me a bad student, as I feel that I should be honoring Jiraiya's legacy, and yet I can't bring myself to forgive Pain. Sorry for once again bothering you like this with my problems. You've probably got your own set of problems without having to worry about mine. In other news, I taught Konohamaru the Rasengan. I guess that means he's my student now, doesn't it? I know there's only 4 years between me and him, but I couldn't think of a better person to make my apprentice. By the way, I won't be in Konoha for the next month. I'll be in Mount Myoboku training in Sage Jutsu, and Kosuke will be staying in Konoha so Grandma Tsunade can let me know if pain shows up. That means after today we won't be able to send messages to each other, so if you have anything you'd like to say beforehand, now's your chance. I hope to hear from you before I go, love. Naruto. Shien looks over the message again. She is sad that Naruto lost his master Jiraiya, but she is happy that she doesn't have to help him out of another funk. She also pays close attention to the fact that Naruto has taken an apprentice despite his young age. This gives her an idea. Normally she wouldn't be allowed to take an apprentice unless she was past the age for childbirth. However, maybe she could use an old law that states in times of crisis, the current priestess must train a backup priestess in case she dies. Shien thinks she could use the Akatsuki as a way for her to be able to train a new priestess, and when said training is finished she could retire from being a priestess and go be with Naruto. But first she must send a reply to Naruto ASAP. Running over to find a pen and paper, she begins wording her reply in her mind. Scene break. Naruto is looking over his unusually cleaned apartment. He has just finished packing and cleaning his apartment, ready for his early departure tomorrow morning. As he looks around, he can't help but be disappointed that Shien hasn't responded to his last message. Either she was too busy to respond, or she got tired of me using her as a sort of soundboard for my problems. Naruto thinks. Suddenly a poof of smoke signals Kosuke's arrival, much to Naruto's relief. Yo, Naruto got a message from Shien for ya. Kosuke says. Thanks, Kosuke. Naruto says. Naruto takes the message and begins to read it. Since Kosuke has to remain in Konoha, he doesn't return to Mount Myoboku. The message is as follows. Dear Naruto. First of, I am truly sorry for the death of Lord Jiraiya, but I am glad that I don't have to snap you out of another funk. Second, don't you ever say you are a bother to me. You are a precious person of mine and I'm always willing to hear about your problems. Third, you are not a bad student. It's understandable that you can't forgive Pain for what he has done, yet the fact you are willing to for the sake of your master's teachings shows how much of a good person you are, and no matter what choice you make, I'll stand by you and your decision. Fourth, I'm glad you are taking an apprentice. It has given me an idea that maybe I should take an apprentice. Good luck with your sage training. Tell me all about it when you get back and please be safe. Love from Shien. Naruto reads the message again and smiles. At the same time, an unexpected warmth rises within his chest that he can't explain. What are these strange feelings he is feeling? It is similar to how he used to think about Sakura, yet more intense. Could I be falling in love with Shien? Naruto asks himself. Scene break. It has been a long month for Shien. She was able to get herself an apprentice, a young girl named Karen, and while training her was fun, she was incredibly lonely without having to send messages to Naruto or reading his messages. After a month though, she enters her chambers and sees Kosuke there waiting for her. Smiling at seeing the toad, Shien approaches the toad. Kosuke, how good to see you. Has Naruto sent me a message? Shien asks happily. Yes, he has, here you go. Kosuke says, handing her the message, before poofing away. Shien opens the message and smiles while reading it. The message is as follows. Dear Shien. First of, my sage training was a success. In fact, according to Fukasaku sensei, I've surpassed Jiraiya as a sage. However, while I was training at Mount Myoboku, Pain attacked Konoha. He killed many people and even destroyed the village. This was before I arrived, however. After I arrived, he and I fought and he almost captured me, but Hinata was able to save me. Unfortunately, doing so got her extremely beat up by Pain. While she was saving me though, Hinata confessed her love for me, and seeing her get seemingly killed by Pain made me almost lose myself to the Kyuubi. But before I could remove the seal, the fourth Hokage stopped me. He actually sealed part of himself within the seal in case I almost freed the Kyuubi. He also told me that I was his son. After that he helped me regain my senses, and after that I was able to defeat pain, but the pain I was fighting was merely a puppet controlled by a guy called Nagato. So I went to confront Nagato on my own. When I got there my first instinct was to attack him, but I calmed myself and decided to hear his story. His story was not a happy one. During the Second Ninja War his parents were killed by Konoha shinobi. After that he made two friends called Yahiko and Konan who were also orphans. They then met Jiraiya who taught them how to survive. After that they sought to bring peace to Omegakure, only to fail, which resulted in Yahiko's death. This sent Nagato down a dark path and he then formed Akatsuki to gather the Biju, so that he could cause enough pain in the world that the world will find peace. After I heard that story I told Nagato that I understood his intentions, but I still could not forgive him. After a brief argument between us about the values of Jiraiya's teachings, I was able to make Nagato see the error of his ways. Nagato then gave up his life and returned to life the people who died during his attack on Konoha. To be honest, I'm kind of sad he died never having known true peace, but I'm glad and I'm sure Jiraiya-sensei is as well that his last act was of atonement. Right now I'm also a little confused about Hinata's confession. On the one hand I've never felt the same way about her as she does for me, and to be honest I still don't now. It's not that she's not pretty, she is, but for some reason she's never entered my mind when thinking about potential girlfriends, plus I have feelings for another girl, yet there are certain circumstances that prevent us from being together, so maybe I should accept Hinata's love and hope that I can learn to love her as she does for me. What do you think? Hope to hear from you soon, love. Naruto. Shion looks over the message in shock. A flurry of different emotions assaults her all at once: pride that Naruto surpassed his master, happiness that he beat pain Nagato and allowed him a chance of redemption, jealousy that another girl has confessed to Naruto, and worry that Naruto may not love her after all. After all, if he did, he would never ask her if he should accept another girl's confession, would he? Her first instinct is to write to him and tell him he should not accept Hinata's confession so that she could then confess her own love for him, but a part of her, the worried part, is making her think that maybe Naruto doesn't love her. She decides to write to him and tell him that he should choose what his heart decides. She also decides to ask who the girl he likes is and what circumstances are preventing him from being with her, though deep down she has her suspicions. Scene break. Naruto is pacing his tent in worry. Stupid, 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 you don't ask the girl you love if you should accept another girl's confession. So why did I? Well, to see her response, to see if she returns my feelings. Naruto thinks, debating with himself. A poof of smoke alerts him to the arrival of Kosuke. Hey Kosuke, how did Shion look when she gave you her message? Naruto asks. I dunno, I can't tell the difference between a human's facial expression. Kosuke says, passing Naruto the message before poofing away. Naruto promptly opens the message and begins to read it. The message is as follows. Dear Naruto, first of congratulations on completing your sage training, and for defeating pain Nagato. I'm also happy that you gave Nagato a chance for redemption. Now regarding your situation with Hinata, I think you should do what your heart tells you. Whichever decision you make, I know it will be the correct one. By the way, who is this girl you like, and what are the circumstances that prevent you from being with her? Please write back soon, love. Shion. Naruto rereads the message and rereads it again. From her response, Naruto can't tell if Shion loves him or not, and it frustrates him. Follow my heart. Well, if I follow my heart, then I turn down Hinata's confession and then announce my love for Shion, yet no matter how much I love her. She's a priestess with a duty she must carry out, and I could never abandon Konoha. You know what, screw it, I've always been a reckless idiot who charges head first regardless of the consequences. So why should this time be any different? I'll have to gently decline Hinata's confession and then send a message to Shion telling her of my feelings for her. Naruto thinks leaving to do exactly that. Scene break. Shion is slowly awakening from her slumber. As she slowly opens her eyes, she spots Kosuke sitting patiently on her bed at her feet. Seeing him startles her and makes her wake up faster. Kosuke, what are you doing here? Shion asks, calming herself down. I have a message from Naruto. Kosuke replies simply. This early? Shion asks incredulously. Yeah, I think he spent all night on it, since he looked pretty worn out when I picked the message up. Kosuke says, putting the message down and then poofing away. Shion sighs and decides to read the message, which is as follows. Dear Shion, thank you for your advice, it really helped. I decided to decline Hinata's confession, which she was disappointed by, but she acknowledged that it was my choice. As for the girl I like, well, it's you. I don't know when my feelings for you started, it could have been when we first met, or just after we defeated Morio. Yet I do know when I realized that I loved you. It was the message you sent me before I left for my sage training. When you called me a precious person and told me to be safe, I've been told those things by others before, yet reading those words from you made me realize that I loved you. As for the circumstances that prevent us from being together, it's because of your duty as a priestess and my duty as a Konoha ninja. You cannot abandon your duties, and I could never abandon Konoha, so because of these circumstances we could never be together. I'm sorry for not telling you this in person, but I couldn't think of a way to do so, plus I bet you don't even feel the same way, so at least I don't have to hear you turn me down. Please don't stop writing to me, love. Naruto. Shion is in shock after reading Naruto's message. He does love me. He loves me. Naruto loves me, is what is running through Shion's mind. Shion then races over to her writing desk to immediately send a reply to Naruto. Scene break. Naruto is pacing around his tent again. He doesn't have any duties to attend to at the moment, so he's just sitting in his tent bored out of his mind. Why am I even waiting for a reply? She's either not going to reply straight away, or break of contact altogether. Naruto thinks. A poof of smoke signals the arrival of Kosuke. Telegram for a Mr. Naruto from Shion. Kosuke says, placing the message down and then poofing away. Naruto laughs at Kosuke's jokes before picking up the message and then reading it. The message is as follows. Dear Naruto, I love you too. I have ever since you saved me from Morio. At the time I attributed it to the fact that you had saved me, but writing to you and reading your responses has only driven home my feelings for you. As for those circumstances you mentioned, I have been working on a plan to circumvent them, which I came up with when you mentioned your taking of an apprentice. In times of crisis I am able to take on an apprentice myself and train her to be a backup priestess, which I have been doing. When she is ready I am going to hand the reins over to her, and come to Konoha to be with you, so please wait for me, my love. Yours forever, Shion. Naruto is shocked upon reading the message, before a great deal of happiness swells up inside of him. She loves me too. She loves me. Shion loves me, are the thoughts running through Naruto's mind. Knowing that Shion loves him sends a great deal of relief through him, and gives him a sense of peace he's never felt before. Scene break. Weeks go by and Naruto and Shion continue to write to one another, though this time it is as two people in love instead of friends. When the Fourth Great Ninja War is declared, Shion cannot help but pray that Naruto survives. Ironically enough, the day the war is declared finished, Shion finishes her training of Karen, and retires as priestess, much to the shock of her people. Deciding to surprise Naruto, Shion makes her way to Konoha without informing him. She's already sorted out the necessary paperwork and gotten special permission from the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Currently in his hospital room, Naruto is recovering from his final battle with Sasuke. In the room with him are the members of Teams 8, 9, save Neji, and 10 along with Sai, Sakura and Sasuke, who is in the opposite bed recovering. Shizune, Kurenai, Guy, who is in a wheelchair, Kakashi, Yamato and Tsunade are also in the room. Naruto and Sasuke are telling everyone about their final battle with Kagaya, with some input from Kakashi and Sakura. A knock suddenly sounds on the hospital door which directs everyone's attention to it. Yes, Tsunade says. The door opens and a nurse pops her head in. Sorry for disturbing you, but there's a visitor for Naruto. The nurse says. Everyone is curious over who has come to see Naruto. Then send them in. Tsunade orders. The nurse nods and allows Shien to enter the room. Recognition flashes across the faces of Tsunade, Kakashi, Sakura and Lee. Everyone else is just confused as to who she is. It's not until Naruto exclaims Shien that everyone else is made privy to who she is, having heard of Naruto's adventure in the land of demons. What's she doing here? Ino asks. Shien doesn't answer, being too focused on Naruto. Suddenly at speeds that would make Minato Namikaze jealous, Shien rushes over to Naruto and immediately begins kissing him, much to the shock of everyone present. Their shock is further increased when Naruto begins returning the kiss, forgetting that people are watching. Tsunade tries to get their attention by clearing her throat, but the pair are so engrossed in playing tonsil hockey with each other they don't notice, which makes a tick mark appear on Tsunade's forehead. Excuse me you two, but I think you both owe an explanation. Tsunade shouts out. This has the effect of stopping Naruto and Shien, while also simultaneously making everyone else in the room cover their ears. Unfortunately for Sasuke, he only has one arm, so he temporarily loses hearing in one ear. Naruto and Shien both gain a sheepish expression. Well, it's a long story. Naruto says. We have time. Tsunade states. So Naruto and Shien told everyone present the tale of how they came to be together. Most of the females save for Hinata, Kurenai and Tsunade have tears in their eyes over the romantic tale. Hinata, however, finally discovers why Naruto turned down her confession, and allows her to gain closure on her feelings for Naruto. Kurenai is happy that her student isn't cut up over not being able to be with Naruto. For the males in the room, however, well, Kiba gags over the amount of mush. Shikamaru for once is paying rapt attention while wondering how Naruto could keep something like this a secret for so long. Choji is happily munching on his chips, enjoying the tale. Lee and Guy are crying over the youthful story. Shino, Sai and Yamato have no reaction. Kakashi is internally weeping over Jiraiya not being able to write an Ika about the pair. Sasuke is regretting being placed in the same room as Naruto. When Naruto and Shien finish, Tsunade rubs her forehead. Well, Konoha will be lucky to have you, Shien. As for you, Naruto, I can't believe you kept such a secret for so long, and I think you owe all your friends an apology. Tsunade says. Sorry guys, but by the time me and Shien became a couple, there was so much going on that I didn't have time. Naruto says. Everyone accepts the apology and they begin getting to know Shien. Scene break. Several years have passed since the end of the Fourth Great Ninja War. In that time, Naruto and Shien have gotten married, as have Sasuke and Sakura, Sai and Ino, Lee and Tenten, Shino and Hinata, Shikamaru and Temari, Choji and Karui, and Kiba and Tamaki. Currently, Naruto and Shino are in a hospital room. Shien is exhausted but happy while Naruto is holding his newly born daughter Minami Uzumaki. As he looks at his daughter, Naruto can't help but reflect on how perfect his life has become. He has a beautiful wife, he is soon to become 7th Hokage, and he now has a daughter as beautiful as her mother. Truly his life has become perfect and no one could have foreseen that.